Hey guys, we are back for another Star Wars Black Series review, taking a look at what is likely my most anticipated figure in this wave, and what is definitely going to be one that'll be hard to track down for at least a while once the troop builders get a hold of this guy. So that's definitely the new Han Solo figure in the Mudtrooper outfit, or as he's just called, Han Solo Mimban. So we've got him here in our standard Black Series packaging. You can see him there in the window. We've got artwork down there on the bottom, and then he is number 78, and we've got that same artwork as well as a bio on the back side. So let's do it. Let's pull him out and take a look. And here he is out of the package, our Mimban Mudtrooper Han Solo figure. This is a pretty stellar Black Series entry. I really only have, well, one kind of annoyance with this figure. I wouldn't even call it a real negative. Everything about this guy just is top-notch, great execution on Hasbro's parts. And for the troop builders out there, I mean, if you're into Mudtroopers, you've definitely got one to go after, because this guy has a lot of cool options going for him. So we're going to take a look first at Articulation like we normally do, see what he can do. I don't think we're going to be too surprised here, because for all intents and purposes outside of his look, he's still a pretty standard Black Series figure. I am going to take the cape off to just ease, my movement of the figure, because frankly it does get in the way a little bit, as you might imagine, with things moving backwards. But we'll just pop this off, and we'll talk about that here shortly. So the head is on a ball peg. It's not a ball hinge, so you can go down, you can go up, bobble side to side, rotate. The arms go out, they swivel. We have got a single jointed elbow, but it is slightly better than 90 degrees. And then you've got rotation there. You've got rotation and hinges at the wrist. You've got an upper diaphragm twist. So you can go side to side, back and forth a little bit, and then he twists. Legs do go out, but only so far. You've got the rubbery piece here that kind of gets in the way. Kick forward, kick back. You got your thigh cuts, double jointed knees as usual. And then you've got rocker, and you've got hinges down at those ankles. So he has, basically everything you would expect to see when it comes to a Black Series figure. He's not missing anything. He certainly doesn't have anything extra. And then, of course, he does have that slightly newer style ball peg at the head, so you can, do a little head swapping with some of those more recent figures. Where this figure, of course, does it for me is the look. Frankly, I'm a big fan of the Mudtrooper design in the first place. I just like it. I like this portrayal in the movie, and it translates to action figure form very well. Now, of course, if you're watching this review, there's a good chance you already know that one of the big things around this particular figure is that he doesn't necessarily have to be Han Solo. He can be a generic trooper. We'll talk about that when we get to accessories, because this is how the figure comes in the package, so I figured we'd talk about it this way first. So you have got what amounts to be just a stellar design here. I really like everything about it. I like a lot of the paintwork. He does seem to have quite a bit of paint applications, all things considered. And then we do have one annoyance that I'm going to talk about with this particular figure, and it's really only that, an annoyance. It's certainly not a game changer. It's not a game breaker or anything like that, but it's something that kind of irks me from time to time. So we have got what amounts to be, just a great new body here. And I know a lot of folks were using General Veers to try to make their own trooper, and he very much shares a General Veers type of look with the helmet and with the chest plate, but it's not the same sculpt. None of that's the same. They're very, very different. He even looked like he has the same kind of pants and boots that some of the Rogue One style troopers have, but even these aren't the same, because this particular design on the kneecaps and on the shins are swapped. So this would normally be on his right side, your left. So there's a lot of interesting things that I thought they were going to reuse, but ended up not being, because in fact this trooper is quite unique. I just in general like the execution here. I like the paint applications. I like the red and the yellow on the arm. There's a lot of paint wear. He's supposed to be a nasty, dirty trooper that's been in the muck and the grime. And while he doesn't necessarily look incredibly dirty, he certainly doesn't look as dirty as, say, the Mimban stormtroopers do. You can definitely tell that this particular figure, this particular trooper, has been in battle. He has been in the trenches, and of course he's definitely been there. As far as his boots go, he's got a bunch of muck and grime on there. So I just like the design. I like the color scheme. I like the very grounded nature of this particular type of trooper, and it's just, it works and it translates to figure form really, really nicely. Now, I did say I have an annoyance with this figure, and it comes with the cape aspect of him. And what's interesting, though, is that I like the design. I like this cape. I like its ragged nature. I like the dry brushing for the paint apps. I like the hood that's pulled down. It very much reminds me of the Mimban Figure Arts Stormtrooper, not the Black Series. That one has a cloth cape. But the Figure Arts Mimban Trooper has a plastic cape, which frankly I really liked. And this one is very similar. It hangs really nicely and it fits the body well. You can see it's even got holes in there, which frankly work. The problem for me, and again, it's an annoyance, it's not a negative, a huge negative, is that it doesn't really attach to anything. It just sort of sits on him. And I say that it doesn't really because it is supposed to, but frankly, mine doesn't really want to. So these pieces here have these little tabs on the inside, and they actually lock in to the tabs on the top of the shoulders, but they just don't really want to. That said, it doesn't fall off either, but it's still, you know, kind of wonky at times. So again, it's an annoyance. It's certainly not a negative. I just find myself playing around with it more than I think I need to. Otherwise, though, I think the figure is just stellar. I love everything about the way this trooper and this figure is designed. And while I don't have the regular Han Solo to compare against, you know, I still have not actually bought him. We do, of course, have a photoreal head to talk about here. And one thing that I didn't know about this particular figure, and I suppose at the end of the day it definitely makes sense that this is the case, is that this helmet is 100% removable. I thought that it was actually part of the head, and it is definitely not. So we'll talk about that real quick. So it is, again, similar, like some folks had seen, with the General Veers helmet, but it's not the same. It's definitely not. It's very different while being stylistically similar. If anything, I get a very AT-ST driver style of helmet out of this when I look at it. From like Return of the Jedi, when you see Chewie rip one of those guys out of the vehicle. That's what I kind of think of. It's obviously not that either, I don't believe, though. But it does have some nice paint apps. It's got some weathering on it. It's even got some paint apps on the top there. So you've got some dirt and some grime on that, but you can pop this guy off. And it is a pretty tight fit, but it comes off and it doesn't seem to cause much of a fuss. So you've got a full Han Solo head underneath, and as you can see, I'm even popping the cape off doing that. So, you know, again, it sits, but it's kind of wonky at times. So you've got your full Han Solo head sculpt here, and I like it. I think it looks really good. The hair has some nice weathering on it. My only real kind of gripe with this is I think he's got like a 1,000-yard stare going on. He's got kind of dead eyes, which at the end of the day, you know, may not be a big issue for you, especially if you plan on covering those eyes up with the mask. But I do think he's got some kind of shell-shocked look going on his face. But otherwise, great paint apps, and the sculpt is on point. It very much looks like our young Han Solo. Now for the rest of our accessories, we're going to try to build this on camera. So we're going to put together our Mudtrooper. So again, like a lot of folks already know, one of the key selling points for this figure is that, again, he doesn't have to be Han Solo. He can be a generic Mudtrooper. So what we'll do is we will put our helmet back on, and it goes on a lot easier than it actually comes off. So, you know, there you go. It's already on. And then we have got some other accessories to talk about. So we've got the goggles. And these can actually sit on him at all times. So one of the key looks is that you can kind of pop it on, and it just sits on top of the head sculpt there. So it sits on the helmet, but of course we will pull them down. And they do sit over top of the helmet. They don't sit on the face. So don't try to do it that way. And then you've got the face mask here, and this guy actually pegs into 2 holes in the back, and they're keyed. So one peg goes in one way, and I've already knocked the goggles off, and the other one goes in the other one. And then what you do is you just pop it in the mouth right there. So it just sits in, and it kind of clips into the inner ring of the helmet there, and it just sits in place. And then you can pop those goggles back on, and you kind of just bring them down over the eyes there, and you have got your generic Mudtrooper. And now, of course, you can bring your cape back in, and once you have all of this stuff on the figure, like this cape's really not going anywhere now. Once he's fully assembled, you're not going to lose anything. It's always going to stay there. But, you know, I just have to point out the fact that it definitely does kind of sit funny. But you've got a full-on Mudtrooper now, and if you didn't know, you wouldn't know that was or wasn't Han Solo. Of course, you do have to kind of fidget with those things to make them sit straight, because they're kind of crooked right now. But as you can see, we have got our full and covered Han Solo figure that becomes a Mudtrooper. And frankly, again, I just love this look. I think it's executed really, really well here. Everything fits nice and tight together. Nothing feels like it's going to come off. And again, once you have this on, that cape is even more set in place because a lot of stuff is actually sitting on top of it. It's still not exactly there, but, you know, I don't have any worry that it's going to fall out. And then as far as actual weaponry goes, we do of course have one weapon accessory. We've got his big rifle here, which he can hold single-handedly in his right hand because he's got a trigger finger, or you can do what I've got here with the dual hand pose because it does have another stock at the end. And I like the sculpt on this. I think it's really nicely executed. It's got a lot of weathering on there, so again, it kind of plays up the whole detail with him being dirty and nasty and in the muck and the grime. So you've got an extra weapon to go along with this particular figure to add to your troop ranks once you get them all built. If you go down that route, you can have them all lined up with their rifle ready to go. And because why not, here is a spread of all the troopers that we have gotten from Solo in the Black Series thus far. So we've got our Patrol Trooper, our Mudtrooper, our Mimban Stormtrooper, and our Range Trooper. There's no real reason to compare these guys. I figure folks just might want to see them paired up next to each other. They all are, of course, very similar in height, but of course they are very different in build and composition, and everything is different across the board on all of these figures. So you've got a lot of options when it comes to troopers specifically from this movie. I'd still have to say, though, at this point, the Mudtrooper is my favorite. The Range Trooper is still fantastic. I still like it. You know, frankly, I like all of these troopers for their own reasons, but something about this Mudtrooper just stands out, and it really, really does it for me. So at the end of the day, this is 100% a winner. I say I have an annoyance when it comes to that cape, and it's really just that. It's a slight annoyance. So don't take that to mean it's a negative. I really doubt you're going to have too many problems with it. It's just, if there's one thing that I kept having to fidget with, it was that particular thing. Otherwise, though, the sculpt is great. The paint is fantastic. Articulation's exactly what you would expect to get. And the fact that you can army build this guy, but you don't necessarily have to if you don't want to, the idea of having those options is an absolute home run on Hasbro's part, so that they didn't have to make two specific releases for this particular trooper. You either get one, or you can go for a bunch, and you have your own little regiment of Mudtroopers, which frankly I'm going to have to get at least another one. This guy begs to be army built. I'm not going to go that route, but I at least need a second one. So that's going to do it for this look at the Star Wars Black Series Mimban Mudtrooper Han Solo. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.